Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
We're now jumping into our foreign film of the month, which is Space Sweepers, a South Korean film available on Netflix. Kirk, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on Space Sweepers?
So, Space Sweepers is my love category. I love sci-fi. I love futuristic things, so this was up my alley 100%. I love the different levels that I saw in this movie when it came to quality. The score was very enjoyable. The costuming and stage production and the graphics were really enjoyable also. The storyline, I like how they made each character grow in small snippets. So you started caring for them a lot more very quickly without having to do a full backstory, which I enjoyed because nothing like having 20 minutes of just one particular character development, and they were able to do it in a minute or two, and
Right.
enough for me to start pulling to those characters and understanding where they're coming from. So that was very enjoyable. Like when I experienced it, I was like, oh, I do like this character. Oh, this is a character like... And a good movie has a good villain. And I think the villain was very, very versed because he was able to speak to most people's basic understanding of like, oh, that's where he's coming from. But then he turns it up a notch a little bit too much. And then you can see it's like, that's like, so the villain was a good balance of how they were engaging and how they really didn't engage with each other very much through the actual movie, like talking wise. Only their interactions on what they were doing actually affected each other rather than an actual confrontation that I was used to seeing in a lot of these space movies.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ernesto, what were your first initial thoughts on Space Sweepers?
Love this movie. It was great. It's so interesting concept. Just the fact that people have junked the Earth and now that same concept applying it to space. As far as their jobs, because I guess the movie is way more about them being space sweepers, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's just interesting to think like that's a job to go out there and clean up the trash that's all over space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because it's listed as a South Korean film, but this movie is in a bunch of different languages.
Yeah,
I think that's cool that they just, instead of speaking to themselves as South Koreans, they're kind of speaking to the people of the world. There was a character who was talking in French. There was one who was in Russian. There was quite a few that were in English, and then obviously the main characters all in Korean. What a great cast, great story, and man, I got to tell you that whole ending scene, that whole ending fight scene where they're trying to get her away, I thought that was beautifully done. Like they actually pulled the wool over my eyes. Like I did not see the girl go to the other, stay back on the ship. Like, they really got me. I was like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. Like, how did I not? It's like, oh my god, how did I not see that coming? Man, they fucking, like, you space sweepers, you got me. You got me there.
you swept that from me. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, the villain, he was cruel as fuck. I mean, but man, they did a good job of showing like how evil he is, like in like a non, I don't even know how to explain. How do I say this? Like I guess in an effective way. Like when that guy who comes to visit the plant, and then he calls him out in front of the tour, and then later on he offers him. He's like, well, you can come stay here, but you have to kill this person. And then he does it, and then he kills a person. He goes, that's exactly why I'll never let you there, because you're greedy.
Yeah.
That was totally unexpected. Yeah, it puts you. I felt like it was for me, it was a roller coaster of emotions. Like, I felt there were points where I was laughing, at points where I felt the seriousness of the moment. It was really well done. I mean, I really can't praise it enough. There's a lot of little great moments within it.
Yeah, I actually thoroughly enjoyed this film as well. I think the second act was better than the first part of it.
Agreed.
The first it took a minute. Honestly, it took a minute for me to get there. But I was enjoying the ride the first half of the movie. But it wasn't until we got I believe the character's name is Tahoe's backstory, where we realized that he used to work for this sort of military, and then he killed this little girl's family that he ended up taking in and not telling anybody, and then he raised her, and then he lost her, or he decided not to kill anymore, and then he lost his rank, and then he became poor, and then there was something that happened, and then he ended up losing her. And I think that was just like such a heartbreaking story to see that. And then Kirk, like you were saying, we throughout the film we got little kind of little origin stories for all of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing long, nothing that was dwelling on it a little bit. It was like in a quick little, all right, here are the people we're after, here's their story, like a quick 2 minute intro, and we're moving on with the rest of it. And and I really, from that moment on, and that's when I felt like after we got his backstory, and like we got to learn more about who this little girl was that they happened to find. I think that's when the story really took shape, because honestly, this movie reminded me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. If I were to compare this to anything,
I could see that.
We have our main character being Star-Lord, kind of the pilot and not really caring about the rest of it. Like, he has his own agenda, and he's also the emotional tie-in because he was trying to find his own daughter floating into space, and he's trying to get money for that. In Guardians, you had Star-Lord, the emotional connections with his mother and the cassette tapes. You can definitely, the woman was Gamora. You had the other guy being Drax. You had the robot basically being Rocket. And I felt the little girl ended up being little baby Groot. She's this cute, little adorable character that has these weird powers that no one understands. And so I just felt like that I was able to compare a lot from it. And I think this was one of the most epic movies we've seen so far, Ernesto.
I really agree.
Yeah.
It was really, really well done.
It was this space, it was this epic space action adventure film. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen a budget, a movie that big as our foreign film selections. They've always been like dramas and indie films, but this one was this was made for the big screen. You're like, oh my God, like the action, the graphics, the visual effects that was in this movie was really well done, and a story that was strong, especially in its second act when we got to realize that these group of misfits who at the beginning of the movie did not like each other, or they were growing tired of one another, and then all of a sudden you have this character, this little girl coming into the mix, and it kind of taught them how to, I guess, work as a team and actually fight for a cause. Because at this point they were just kind of fighting for money, and that wasn't working out for them. So now they're fighting for something bigger than themselves. And I thought that was very well translated in the film.
100% agree.
Yeah,
it's like that. I just felt like, just kind of piggybacking off of like that whole fight sequence at the end where he's chasing him in the ship. I literally was on the edge of my seat. Mm-hmm. Like, I just felt like they just did that so well, and like I felt like everything was on point. But what really tied it together, I felt like the ending of the film was just very strong. It was just a very strong ending to the film, and I think to me that's what lets it set into place so well. It's like everything else was really good, but the fact that you gave us an ending, like a very satisfying ending, it was completely satisfying. Yes. And the fact that I was surprised. They were able to throw a surprise at me at the end. It was what really got me.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting for little girl to be stowed away and not on the ship at all. And then the fact is, and again, going back to Guardians, they were willing to sacrifice themselves for this bigger cause. And ultimately, this little girl ended up saving her. Sorry, like Groot did. Yes, I'm telling you. This is the South Korean Guardians of the Galaxy. Space Sweepers, everybody. But she ended up saving them, and I will say that the powers aspect of it, or how that she was able to get the abilities, I feel like that wasn't really fleshed out, but I can forgive that because this movie is in the future, 2092. If I can believe that there are people sweeping trash in space, then I can believe that this little girl has powers. Like it's hard for me to like dwell on that one aspect on it when everything else was just so good about the movie. But Kirk, you mentioned like you really enjoyed the villain, and I feel like I didn't connect with him as much. Again, going back to Guardians, we didn't spend a lot of time with him, and I didn't understand his motive, but I knew that he was the bad guy.
Correct. So what was happening is the villain in this type of capacity, I like this one because he's not completely hands-on. It's because he forced these particular characters into the positions that they're in. So now they're fighting the position more than fighting him. And we're just getting a synopsis of what he's still continuing doing. So as an example, like with Game of Thrones, like you have a certain villain because they've done X and Y as an active thing against the hero, as this was more of he wasn't proactively doing anything towards them, but he was still doing it towards everyone else, and these are the heroes that rose out of that pressure that this villain caused.
Okay. Ernesto, did you also like the villain in this movie?
He was alright. I really, like I was saying earlier, like I really enjoyed that one scene where he was kind of getting back at the guy who called him out during the tour. Like I felt like that was their way for us to show us like just that was them giving us his exposition. Like this is his, because there was a lot of him dictating like, well, this is why I do this, and this is why you'll never be accepted into my perfect society. But I think maybe what is it that you just wanted more? Like you just wanted more of him?
I just didn't understand his motive. I think like that was my if I was really to nitpick on this movie was it wasn't a strong villain. I didn't understand where he was coming from, and then I also didn't understand like he was mad and he had like this rage and like these like it was affecting his skin. And I was thrown off because that was never explained. Like he got really mad, and physically he was like, I don't understand what was happening there. It's almost like I didn't see any secret serum that he took to
That's
him.
Fair.
You're right.
I think what I did is when I saw that, I just made an assumption. I was like, oh, maybe he injected the nanobots and it didn't affect him as positively as it did this little girl, and maybe that's why he's so mad at her. Like I don't know.
We could have. The movie was 2 hours and 16 minutes. Either we could have cut out a scene, or we could have just included an extra 5 minutes on that, just to showcase if there was any nanobots or whatever the case may be. Like we could have shown how that happened, because I didn't think the movie did a good enough job to tell the audience what was going on there. But unless that's just a visual representation, like if you didn't think he was the bad guy now. Or then he is now, because you see effectively, his face is all, veiny or whatever you want to put on there. But yeah, I think that was my only big thing. I liked the robot. I thought he was great comedic timing. He was really funny, and also it was a robot who, funny enough, he wanted to be a human. He wanted to have the bone structures of human, and at the end of the movie, he got his wish.
A human girl.
A human girl, right?
Yeah, he wanted to be the girl. Bubs.
Yeah. Bubs, yes. I just thought it was just a strong group of characters that I felt like I said in the beginning,
the writing was strong.
The writing was strong.
Besides the villain, obviously, for you.
Right. But even so, like again, going back to Guardians, I don't remember what Ronan wanted, like as the villain. I don't remember his motives in that movie. But you know that each character of Guardians of the Galaxy were their own distinct character, and you can point out multiple moments in that movie, as well as Space Sweepers, where they all had their moment to shine, and they all eventually had their purpose in the film. And then when they were able to work together, like they know that they can work together as a team and do it very well. And even at the end of the movie, like, they were all together, and he was like, all right, what's the next space adventure? And then they just kind of rode off into the unknown of space while the heroic music was playing in the background, which was just, the score was also fantastic as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really enjoyed the music.
I'd watch
in the
Space
film.
Sweepers too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up. Honestly,
Sign me
Ernesto, as far as like we mentioned that we didn't watch a lot of like action-packed movie. I take that back. We did watch Train to Busan, and that was a pretty
great
Yeah.
zombie flick.
Oh yeah.
Train
So-
to Busan.
Busan.
Yeah,
I think isn't it still on
Busan.
Netflix? It might still.
I don't know where it's sitting right now, but I think it's well, since we are. I mean, Kirk, I'm gonna just go on our favorite app here to try to figure this out. Here it
I'm
is.
already 2 steps ahead of you.
It's on Prime.
Okay.
So it's on Amazon Prime. Train to Busan, really good movie. Another South Korean flick. But yeah, I mean, overall, just kind of closing statements. I really enjoyed this movie. Strong group of characters. Reminds me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. Villain was a little bit all right, but ultimately, I had a great time watching this movie, and it really tied together. And there's a lot of heart in there too, that that everyone can kind of relate to. Kirk, what are your final thoughts?
Enjoyed it 100%. It's a movie I would suggest to anyone that wants a good movie. I love the staging that they put, the character development of the characters, and each actor did a fantastic job also. Mm-hmm. Fight scenes were enjoyable, very cinematic to watch. So it was something nice to look at, and also you had your preferences of how you wanted to listen, or subtitles or dubbed, so that gave us options in a different inflections, especially if you change it in that kind of capacity. Because I watched some of it in subtitles in the regular language, and as they spoke about things, you can see the facial changes are a little bit different than the words as you listen to it. But I enjoyed all of the above, whichever way you guys want to watch or listen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm more of a subbed kind of guy. I know Matt is a dubbed. I know Matt is a dubbed guy.
Yep. Yes, I am.
He prefers to do as least 3. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because you're still getting to enjoy the film. But I'm
still enjoying the movie, yeah.
I do feel like you do get a little bit more when you do watch it subbed, only because you can catch those inflections in their voices, and when they're trying to say certain things. So maybe like that's how they say it, but it's like then you can hear sometimes it's really important to see how they said it as opposed to what they actually said.
Yeah, I will say though that the dubs, I think this is probably the best dubbed film that I've watched so far. Out of all the ones that I have done dubbed, if I had the option to do dub and I've selected it, this was the best one so far. Okay. I thought the dub acting was very well done. It did not distract me from the movie at all. Obviously there was a robot in there who didn't, he didn't put any voice in there, so that was very well done as well. So I'm sorry, I didn't catch your final thoughts there, Ernesto. You said thoroughly enjoyed it?
Oh yeah, man, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's definitely going to be in my top for this year. At least, well, let me not say that.
we got a lot of 2021 to go left, so
yeah, that's true. It's like let me not commit to it, but it's at least a contender. Let's say that.
There you go.
It's already in the contender list.
So there you go. All right, so there you go. That's our foreign film of the month, Space Sweepers. Like we said earlier, it's available on Netflix. Hey, thanks for listening to this edited version of our weekly podcast, Box Office Bingers. If you want to hear the full version of all of our episodes, which includes us discussing entertainment news, movie and TV reviews, guest interviews, and other things we've been watching, you can find us on wherever you listen to podcasts.
And if you want more from us, be sure to hit that subscribe button and find us on our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers, Facebook at boxofficebingers, email at boxofficebingers@gmail.com, and Matt, we're even on the TikTokies. We're on the TikTokies at Box Office Bingers. Once again, thanks for listening.